Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Prospero.ai stock market live streams. I see we already have a comment in the live chat in our YouTube chat. So thank you, Johnny74 USA, saying happy Wednesday, all. Good to see you in the chat, Johnny. Thanks for joining in, bringing the energy here as we start the stream. You know, it's crazy to say, it doesn't even feel right, but the market is actually red as we're starting the stream here. It doesn't feel like there's been a red market in a while when we've been streaming, but we are down across the board today. The QQQ, SPY, Dow, Russell, all in the red. Dow, QQQ, and SPY are about the same, down about 1/3%. Russell down about 0.75% here as we're starting the stream on this fine Wednesday, September 24th. The VIX also is in the red right now, though, which I don't think we would expect to see on this red day, especially as we've had such a lack of volatility. You'd think on a real red day, you'd see the VIX spiking, but it is currently down as well. So it doesn't seem like there's too much panic in the market at the moment. Kevin Hawthorne is watching the stream. Good afternoon from Lakeland, Florida. Hello, Kevin. Good afternoon to you too. I hope you're excited for some of the topics we're going to get into on the stream today. We got a lot of good ones as everybody's rolling on in here. I see we've already had over 50 people tuning in just a minute of being live. Hit that like button whether you're watching on X, Twitter, or YouTube. We are also, let me just say at the very beginning, approaching 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you have not yet, hit that sub button on YouTube. Let me get our live count here as we start the stream today. I think we're at like 29:30. Let me go to check. We're at 29:51 now. So you guys have been doing great. We got a few subs since our stream on Monday, but we're now 49 away. So the countdown is on for the big 3,000. But without further ado, I'll go through the list of topics we have for you here today. We're going to begin with possibly what has triggered the market weakness we're seeing today, with Powell having some comments yesterday about the market, saying it is fairly highly valued, was I think the key phrase that might have spooked the market a bit. So we'll see how much George how worried he is about these comments that Powell made just a few days and a week or so after they cut rates. Then we have to get into this open AI infrastructure development for AI, almost $1 trillion of what they plan to do. And I think this is probably a large part why we've seen the nuclear stocks, the crypto mining stocks, which are now becoming seemingly like AI data center stocks, rallying like crazy. The NBISs of the world, the CoreWeaves, all of these stocks have gotten incredible gains in the past couple weeks and months. So maybe this OpenAI spending in AI infrastructure has a lot to do with it. Then we will get into Instagram, which just hit a milestone for their monthly active users of being over 3 billion. So just about half the planet is using Instagram every month. Pretty good user base for them there. I want to ask George, we'll talk a little bit about Meta and how they've just looked so strong in our signals and how Instagram's probably a big part of that. But I wonder what he thinks the Prospero app total addressable market for monthly active users can be. Like, if we put on our thinking caps and think about the future, how many monthly active users do we think Prospero can grow to? I'm not sure if we could get quite to 3 billion, but maybe as close as we could get someday. I see another comment saying, hey, good afternoon from Memento Mori Forever. Hello. Our YouTube chat is coming in strong with the comments. JC, you think 1 billion maybe for Prospero users in our app? Is that what you're saying with that first comment there? What's up? Good afternoon. Good to see you in the comments today. We also have to talk about this bearish developing story, possibly, of a government shutdown. So first of all, I want to ask George, is this going to be bullish or bearish? You never know with how the market's going to take a story these days, whether it's going to be bullish or bearish. But the odds are rising. So when we get into the story, I'll give the live odds then and see if there's anything changes. Currently, they're at 65% on Polymarket for a shutdown happening on October 1st. So 3 billion and one user. So we'll have to get into this. That the odds have been steadily rising too. So I know George always likes to look at this time series graph of Prospero. The time series graph of these odds have just been up and up and up from 26% chance on September 14th, 10 days ago, all the way up to 65 now. So looking more likely. So how will the market take that if that does occur? Then we're going to get into Lithium America stock, which was up triple digits, over 100% the last time I looked at it. Let's see how it's doing now with the market weakness we're having today. Maybe it has given back some of those gains. Not quite. It's still at 96%, so hanging on up there. Another stock that the Trump administration is looking to take a stake in, and they have a unique asset in their Thacker Pass lithium mine. So we'll get into all of that um, and why the Trump administration would look to take a position in them, and then if this is going to be a lasting bull story for LAC is the ticker for Lithium Americas, or if this is a one-off type move. I always like to ask George when we see a stock moving this much, should you be buying it now or should you wait for a pullback perhaps? Mario is tuning in from CDMX. Hello, Mario. Good afternoon. Love to see all of our Prospero community saying hi in the chat as we get into the stream here. And last but not least today, before the model portfolio update at the very end of the stream, which is sure to be a good one with how we are seeing the market move. We actually have to check on the QQQ and SPY net option sentiment too. That just reminded me. But we will be bringing up Costco earnings on the stream. We'll do a little earnings preview for Costco. They report tomorrow after the bell. We've had basically all the earnings of this earnings season so far, but we will highlight Costco as we've been talking about the discrepancy with Walmart and Target, how those stocks were performing so differently recently. It's actually kind of interesting. Costco's kind of right in the middle of the two. I believe they've just been kind of consolidating. Yeah. So over the past year, they are up 3%, but they've just been kind of in this up and down consolidation zone. So we'll see how George views them. But let's take a look at the QQQ and SPY net option sentiment here today. With the market being in the red, it looks like our signals for the SPY and QQQ are also kind of looking a little weaker. We are seeing QQQ at 11 right now and the SPY at 7. Oh, we just got an update live as I was looking at it. QQQ is now at 13 and the SPY is at 10. So a teeny tiny bit of an increase there, but still lower than they were on Monday when we were looking at it. They were both, I think the SPY was like 29 and QQQ was in the 30s. They were well above where they are now. So it's looking a little bit weaker here today. And that is looking true in the overall markets. So without further ado, we will just wait for George to join us. If you guys have any questions throughout the stream today, as always, feel free to let us know in the comments. We will be happy to address all of your comments, concerns. Let me do a look around the markets right now. I see Apple, Amazon, Google all in the red, Microsoft and Meta in the green, and Tesla actually looking like it's up almost 4% here today, even though we're seeing a decently red market. So Tesla is not concerned with the red market. Memento said the app has live data or delayed. So the app updates every 3 minutes with live data. So it is essentially live. Every 3 minutes you get an update. Let me look at NVIDIA as well to look at our last Magnificent 7 stock. Where is NVIDIA? Here we go. NVIDIA is currently in the red as well. So we're seeing a split in the Magnificent 7. I mean, NOS, net option sentiment. Yes, all of the signals are actually every 3 minutes. I believe it's every signal that they update all every 3 minutes. I think technical flow rating used to not update every 3 minutes, but since we've changed it and updated it to technical flow, now it does. But yeah, they all should be updating by the moment. Let me look at the Prospero short-term bull picks, which if you don't know, if you're new to the Prospero app, it is the first page you open up to when you open up the Prospero app. Right now we have Alibaba at the top, which has been in the bullish signals for most of the time recently, and we're seeing that with the share price now moving on up. Meta is number 2 on the list, followed by Baidu, UNH, Eli Lilly, Boeing, Google, Oracle, Google again, and then Intel. Ooh, Intel is making the list. Interesting. Intel is up to 84 net option sentiment, 75 upside in the app. Nick said on YouTube, oh wait, here we go. Let me do this. I keep forgetting to do this for the people that are watching on Twitter. It probably helps see the comments. You may want to update the signal descriptions then. Things like dark pools say update about once a day, net option every 36. So I might have been wrong. Some of the signals might not update every 3 minutes. Maybe I was just thinking of net option sentiment and upside, which are the ones that we typically where I look at the most. So if it says it in the signal descriptions, it's probably right. Short pressure is 4 times a day. So there you go. So I was wrong on that one. I had something I wanted to say right before we got onto Nick's comment. I forget now. I forget now. I see George is joining in with us all. We are seeing a screener in the Prospero app. Net options sentiment bear turn. So that is pretty good with what we are seeing in the market so far today. IIPR, POWI, and beyond BYND leading that list. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream today. It's odd to be joining you on a red day. I feel like we haven't had a stream during a red market day in quite some time as the market has melted up.
I know it's been. I was actually kind of shocked to see net option sentiment fall so fast. I thought there might be. This rally has been so. This rally has been so. Powerful and kind of. Even at all-time highs, seeing such a strong recovery in a way that we haven't seen, both in the market and net option sentiment. It's kind of surprising that there wasn't kind of a step stair day down to this. But tomorrow will be very interesting.
Well, it isn't like the market is crashing or anything yet, right? Like I feel like with all the bullishness that we've seen in the markets, any red day feels bigger than it is. So the QQQ is down 0.4% right now. So not a crazy move, but I do want to ask you, what do you think is the cause for this weakness in the net option sentiment and the market today? I know Powell spoke yesterday and people were pointing to a comment that he had said where he said the market is fairly highly valued at the moment, which people thought it was also funny because Trump spoke earlier in the day and then Powell spoke later, and they basically said the exact opposite of each other. So it's kind of funny there. They've always been at odds seemingly recently, but do you think that's kind of the main reason we're seeing the market having this bit of weakness today? Is those Powell comments that we got in the afternoon?
I mean, I don't think. Um, I don't think because of the timing. Um, I'm not sure that's what I'd attribute it to. I mean, I just think we saw such a strong rally that you never. This seems to be profit taking to me. Now, the net option sentiment, someone like what might have started the day, because it was a bit of a slower acceleration, I would say, into now, which is looking, it started off, it looked like another green day. Then I think we kind of started to get a sell off, and we see like, kind of that sell off continue. But we'll see. We'll see how it opens tomorrow. I don't think this looks to me like some profit taking that may have expanded into some, people more strongly hedging and saying, okay, is this profit taking going to continue to expand, right? The way it's been rallying, even a little correction is pretty likely from the last week. That's how I see it.
So what you just said there, like a little correction is pretty likely. It seems like a lot of people are starting to point to the fact that it might be time for the market to correct a bit. Now, I want to ask you, like, how much of a correction is enough to reset the table to where a bull rally can continue? Is it, 3% market dip, 5%, 10%? And then if we do get a dip here over the next month, it's most likely probably not going to change your opinion on like the near market over the next 12 months, like the bull rally that we've seen with AI and everything, right? Like that will be a buyable dip in your opinion, unless we get some new information as to why the market's dipping.
I'm hearing increasing chatter um, that there's an imminent larger correction, right? Take that for what you will. The pessimist towards institutions or the most unkind read is that it could just be the bears circulating these rumors. I certainly know a lot of people that are in contact with some major bears. But I tend to, I'd say the diversity of the people I talk to, I'm hearing it from people that I don't necessarily hear as much like typical bear alarm from. A lot of it is, a lot of it is based on something we talk about all the time, the extended credit markets, right? And whether it be people kind of worrying about, payments on, unsecured debt, concerns about, an overheated real estate market. There's different kind of talk about like what the catalyst, the signs, but I'm definitely hearing more of it. I mean, what I always say to those people is very similar to what I say on these streams. So there, it doesn't. What I'm saying doesn't really isn't really too contingent on the audience. What I say, and people probably have heard me say it before, is like I hear people all the time saying these things are imminent, and then even me, like before I started to shift more to this kind of attitude, there were a few times when I was like, kind of overreacting, over hedging, whatever it may be, to kind of like an imminent bear run. And the one thing I've seen consistently is it always isn't as imminent as the people saying it is imminent as. I mean, what I will say, and what I also say to these people is like the way we are setting this up with various governments propping up the markets, there's almost no way that we don't, and sort of the longer it runs, the longer it goes up, there's almost no way in that system that we don't get a major correction or even a crash, right? Now, in summation of what I'm saying, even though I'm hearing more chatter about some big problems coming on this, like the soon horizon, I'm not going to oversample on that, but are we ever one piece of very bad news or very surprising, just bad, like surprising that's not very bad, but bad news, away from, a severe market correction? Absolutely. Which is why, even now we're staying pretty even long short. We've changed the makeup of our portfolio a little bit, obviously, especially not shorting as many small cap stocks, and we have more small cap longs. I'd say that's the biggest adjustment, and I think why we're doing better the last few weeks, because I think we figured out a good way to play this market. But no, I think we absolutely, with where prices are, we're one piece of bad news away from a particularly strong correction. So that should never be too far away from your mind, but it shouldn't be too far in front of your mind that you're losing, what could be a lot more gains coming in the same few months that people are, talking about as the imminent decline.
Now, the question I have you from what you just said there is like, so if you're hearing this rumor of like, oh, people are expecting kind of a larger pullback than typical, and since you're hearing that more often, it would seem to believe that more investors would be positioning that way. How come the market can continue rallying in the face of that? Why wouldn't we see that in more of like a chop in the market, or the market going even down? Let alone besides today, it's just been basically straight melting up. So how come it doesn't seem to be like in the price action of the market if investors are feeling that way more?
Well, I think we're seeing it in the options markets, right? I think, and we have been seeing it in the options markets, today, like, where we started, where we're not seeing, typically with an option sentiment, the behavior before this year, what we would see is we wouldn't see, like where it was yesterday, almost a 70 combined score in net option sentiment one day, and then, like a 30 the next day, right? Without a real major news event, right? Typically we would see like maybe like a 70 combined, maybe a step of a 50 combined before a step of a 30 combined, right? So I think that is the market that we've continued to talk about. It's it's a market where institutions are at the first sign of trouble are going to make sure their hedges are on, and that's why SPY QQQ net option sentiment is so helpful, right? It's just giving you some insight into how they're thinking about these things.
So I want to get into this OpenAI announcement about their AI infrastructure plans, and some people were, before I get into the story, some people were kind of questioning how this money is being a little bit circular, of going basically from like Oracle to Nvidia to OpenAI, and kind of just like rotating in a circle from all these parties. But OpenAI is planning to spend nearly $1 trillion, 850 billion to be exact, to build about 17 nuclear plants, and it could power enough that it's going to produce enough power that it could power 13 million U.S. homes. And all of this is happening at a time when we're seeing the stocks like Iron, NBIS, and all these like data center type plays just rip, and even Oklo and the nuclear stocks. So maybe this was the cause all along. People were anticipating something like this to be announced. But yeah, like OpenAI, how do they even have the capability to invest 850 billion? And just like, I feel like this is building on the story we talked about Monday of like, where is the economy going? Like, I feel like the USA is just going to become one giant super computer chip at some point. It's like they're just spending so much for this AI infrastructure development. Um, is it as bullish as it sounds for all these companies and the ones that have been ripping recently?
Um, I mean, we talk about this all the time, right? The Whether or not like the actual ROI on these investments play out, there's a lot more spending coming in chips, almost like, an insane amount coming just to expand the capabilities, right? People are going to really need to overspend for a long time before they decide that they haven't gotten the ROI. And like we've talked about, like, I think it's a good, because I don't remember my saying this in a long time, and I think it's a good way that I look at this in a huge paradigm change with AI, right? There's a concept called headline risk when you're investing, especially on the institutional side. And headline risk is, it could mean, the first place you jump in terms of how a company thinks about headline risk, which is, we don't want to cause any headlines or bad headlines, but, we could see sometimes, some people like Elon Musk can make a lot of these headlines that even aren't working for some people, work for him. How an institution actually thinks about headline risk is more on an ROI basis. They don't want to invest in some fringe small cap company and lose all their money, right? Or lose a bunch of money, right? Because then it's going to be like, well, why are you so dumb, right? Why would you invest in that? Nvidia is going up 10x, and you put all this money in the small cap, right? You better be right if you do it. is the best way to look at it. And then it also works on the flip side. Like, if you have your money in, Nvidia, and you lose, it's going to be like, okay, you and everyone else, I don't think you want to like allocate like 80% of your portfolio, because then it's like, what good are you? But there's a lot of aspects to it, right? Why do I mention the investment side of it, right? Because companies have to think about ROI and that kind of headline risk too. And typically, we like to use these examples both in the same place, where it's just like, because Meta did both, and I kind of like looking at it like this. Meta obviously invested in the metaverse, and that went horribly for them. A big reason why Prospero years ago rode it all the way to the top, because basically them being so stupid managing headline risk and putting so much money into a frontier tech that didn't pan out made everybody view Zuckerberg and Meta as stupid, and that made them ultimately trade at a discount, right? They didn't manage that headline risk well, because just like we used in the small cap example, if you put a bunch of money into a new technology that other large companies aren't putting nearly as much money to, and you're wrong, it's going to make you look pretty dumb. You failed the headline risk test, right? But I like to use this example with them because Meta later, famously, whether it be, PyTorch or Llama, or all this open source stuff, they started investing a lot of, well, not necessarily a lot compared to like OpenAI, what OpenAI is putting into it. But I guess that's also not true with some of the hires. But they started to be viewed a lot more favorably because how they manage the headlines around these AI investments, right? And I tell this story because every other market paradigm I've seen, expansion, blah, 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 whatever, you still had to face this headline risk of like, okay, I'm going to spend on some new technology. But I better be right. I better be sure I'm going to get ROI. Companies are pretty cautious around that type of thing, so they don't end up like Meta, getting their stock slammed. Even if it's a good company, they just can't get past this bad use of resources, right? AI is the first thing that I've seen the opposite in. And that's headline risk on the other side. You actually now, as a company, are facing headline risk if you don't have an AI strategy, right? Because everybody just wants people to be spending money on that. So that's a very interesting shift. And it's why, and we talked about this, I think, with I don't know if it was Iran or another company last week. We're just getting to a point where, any exposure to being in the right place, whether it be compute, services, products, you name it. If you're on the right place as AI, if you're looked, even if like there's no proven ROI, right? And that's what we talked about with Iron, right? We don't actually know if they're going to get an ROI on that. I mean, it's likely because of how much the rest of what we're talking about. Well, we don't know. But the market is automatically responding positively to that. So that reverse headline risk is basically de-risking this spending. And like, that's one of the easiest things for a company to do. Say they're spending money on things, right? It's very easy to write these, future checks if it's going to help your stock price today, right? And that's what we're seeing. And we're going to keep seeing it as long as we're seeing it. And yes, people are talking about this weird circular Oracle relationship, where, Oracle invests in, or NVIDIA invests in CoreWeave. CoreWeave then makes purchase orders from those companies or flow agreements. Everybody gets richer and they just, another investment comes and it just like cycles them all up. That's not happening. Nothing's happening about that anytime soon. Because if there's one thing I know about the companies, right? Companies don't, because of the same headline risk problem we're talking about, if they see a strategy is working, why try other strategies, right? Especially if all that strategy is just saying you're going to spend a bunch of money that because of how the markets are going to respond, you're going to get a return on. It'll be interesting if we start to see some of these like headlines wearing off. But I think probably the market is going to bust before we see these headlines not being effective anymore because of the interconnectedness and because people now can assume this is coming, right? Everybody's just like, okay, well, we got another NVIDIA investment. That's going to be another big chip order that's coming this way, or a big power order. And I think that's the other thing to mention. I do think nuclear is getting all wrapped up in this now too. Obviously, there's like explicit relationships between the companies. Sam Altman did step down from Oklo, but that's only so much. I do think, if anything, these nuclear companies are starting to be priced at just like crazy multiples, just because of the thing, like just because of what we were talking about. I think maybe last week, where it was just like, hey, there's no, and the quick example is we're just like, look, we don't know if NVIDIA GPUs or quantum chips are ultimately going to be the ones used, or if NVIDIA is going to be the beneficiary or whatever. But we do know that if a company has nuclear capacity to power some of these systems, everybody's going to buy them up regardless of what chips win. And I think that's why nuclear is getting valued in that way.
Mm-hmm. I think it's so interesting, and it's going to be interesting to watch because of how clearly you've laid out the reaction that the market's having to like spending on AI. The first company we see react negatively to something like that if the market hasn't gone down yet, that will be a very clear indication we're probably on the precipice. So I'm going to be looking out for that. Um, my other question with it is, like you were talking about Iron, how we were saying they announced they're buying almost $1 billion of chips. The stock goes up. It's up 15% again today, so it's just rallying furiously. Do you foresee any scenario where this investment of nearly $1 trillion by OpenAI, where they don't have the AI, need on the other end of it? Like they have too much energy. Is that a possible risk? Is there any risk in this headline for OpenAI and any other company that's just investing like so much money into the infrastructure? Is there a possibility the demand doesn't meet it?
Only if, um, I mean, highly improbable. Um, but I would say there's two long shot, um, changes, right? I think one is, um, a change in compute, right? We talked about quantum chips, whatever, but that's like very far out, very long. The other, and I think this one is more likely, but these are all pretty small probabilities. Whatever is going on with Baidu, Alibaba, whatever becomes competitive, right? And I think 2 and 3 actually interact. 3 is if there is a severe market crash and people become just more cost conscious. I think all this AI spending is going to be the first to go. But that's why I said 2 and 3. If China has a lower cost option, obviously there's security issues, and obviously there's like we might not even allow it, like regulations the way we're going. And the economy struggles. Those are the only ways I can see it happening. Otherwise, it's kind of a slam dunk.
Well, that was a pretty thorough discussion on AI today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I want to move on from it now, but I love topics like that, so that was cool. Moving on to Instagram, they announced that they have hit the 3 billion monthly active user mark. You highlighted Meta a bit already. I wanted to ask you, just like how important Instagram is for their business to you, and hitting this milestone. Nearly half of the world is using Instagram every month. But then I also wanted to ask you about Prospero, and if you envision in your golden scenario of Prospero becoming the best version of itself it can be, what is like the total active monthly user, like end of the road goal you think Prospero could get to one day?
I mean, the actual Prospero program, like that people use today, the newsletters, that has, I mean, I don't think it has a billion users. Let's put it that way, right? There's just not that many people that want to actively manage their portfolio, actively look at it. I mean, I think it's the best product out there for people that do. So the market could get big on that basis, especially when we go internationally. But there's that limitation. But I mean, in terms of the amount of people that could potentially own, a Prospero ETF, I'd hope we can get to a billion on that. I hope that we like the system that we build and everything like that. I mean, that's a stretch goal. Like maybe like 100 million is more realistic. But yeah, I think the ETF is where we're going to really see our like real mass market adoption.
And just from the Meta side of things, how important do you think Instagram is to them? Do you think that's the number one aspect of their business right now? Or is it their AR glasses project? Is it WhatsApp, Facebook? Or do you think they're all kind of similarly important? How would you rank the different arms of Meta?
I think that is there. I think for monetization, it's definitely Instagram, right? Um, I think WhatsApp is the best. Like I'm seeing more and more people just like even people on WhatsApp, like that I text, just like switching to it. Like, and pretty much anyone international that I know is on WhatsApp, but the monetization isn't there. Like user base, like WhatsApp easy, I think is like, it could be like huge, huge. Um, It already is. But I think Instagram with the video aspect, I just think that like obviously like Meta again is like big, so many users, but I mean I think like we're going more towards video content and that tailors towards Instagram, and I just think that's where it could be um the biggest market. I mean, but a big thing is TikTok. They got to figure out how to make an algorithm as good as TikTok. If they can, then the sky's the limit.
So I was never a huge Instagram user. I was on YouTube more, but recently I've been scrolling that explore page more, and I have to say it's pretty good. I was actually, let me be honest, I never used TikTok myself personally either, so I can't speak to their algo. But I did notice that Instagram, like if it notices that I'm watching a video, it will just feed you more of that style of content. So they do a really good job, and I've actually started to enjoy it more because I've been like watching motivational stuff and stuff, and then it just feeds you like constantly. So I don't know if they changed their algo or if anybody else who's watching the stream like has noticed how good Instagram's algo has gotten. But I don't know if you've noticed, George, at all how much time you're spending on social media. But I have definitely noticed recently.
What what are you watching? Like Tony Robbins?
No, there's like these like they just have quotes and they're you know what? Don't make fun of my Instagram Explore page. Not Tony Robbins though. Let's see. Let me try to find an example. Um,
No, I think there's some good motivational speakers, but a lot of them are. It's a lot
here's
of.
the first thing that pops up on my page. Try to appreciate how temporary everything is. There you go. That's the first quote that pops up.
That's I mean, it sounds like you're dabbling in like in Buddhism, Stephen. I like that more than motivational speaking.
I'm definitely on that wavelength. So that's enough about me. I'm feeling embarrassed.
Oh, you know, I can't ask the questions for once.
Yeah, I like when the shoe's on the other foot. Um, we didn't get any responses for the Instagram algo from our watcher, so I guess nobody else has noticed either. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to add that in there. I did want to bring up another possible reason the market could be down today and get your thoughts on it. So I saw people were noticing that in Polymarket, the odds for a government shutdown by October 1st have been rising. Let me take a live look at it. So on September 14th, it was at 26%, and it is all the way up to 64% chance today. Are you going to be watching these odds as that date approaches, and how concerning would a government shutdown be for the market? Would that be a bearish event? Just, it would happen next week if this is to come true.
I mean, I uh I think I saw a quote from Trump the other day that said it might be a good thing for the government to shut down. Um, and when I read that quote, I was like, well, at the very least, this thing might be going to the brink. Um, but I don't like. It's so hard to bet on these things or like to validate the bets because I think at the end of the day, um, it never happens, right? How many like brinks or like whatever? I just think like even if we're gonna play devil's advocate and say like the very worst, and to be clear, I'm not saying this, but if you think of the very worst of Trump, right? And you're just like, he's gonna he wants to shut it down and bet on Polymarket, right? Like, even in that situation, if he was the only one deciding that, like, he would be getting so much pressure from like everybody in Congress. Like, it's such a bad look for every elected official to have that happen. So that's what I'm saying. Devil's advocate, even if that was, I really just don't even think he would use all of his like political capital and his allies to, do that. So, like, that is, I think, the absolute like worst case scenario. Because the rest of it, you have to look at it as just like everybody in Congress. They always talk a big game. These people in Congress, most of them are elected and elected and elected. The majority of them are just there, and they always work something out. It's the same people. Like they like the political theater, but at the end of the day, they don't. Nobody wants to have to face their constituents and said, we couldn't make a deal for the shutdown. I do think I do think Trump is the X factor, and that's why I brought that up. I don't think he's betting on Polymarket and going to intentionally shut it down. But that is to say, like, he's the first president I've seen that actually has enough control that if he wanted to say push something through from his agenda that he thought the Democrats would only agree to if he put everybody through some pain and a shutdown. But even that, the Democrats don't have to agree to it. It could be people in his own party. Like the big beautiful bill did face more resistance than I think he was expecting. So I think you might look at it this way: if there's a piece of his agenda that got eliminated from this or he didn't get across, like that's the only X factor that I could see it getting shut down. But at the end of the day, I don't think anyone wants to piss anyone off that much. They'd rather be less overt. They'd rather just, I think everybody in government would rather just kind of subtly, get their agenda across, as much as possible. I mean, even look at how the big beautiful bill went. There was like so many things that even the people in Congress at the last minute were like, I didn't know this was in. There was a few people who, after it was passed, said, I didn't know this was in. Right. So I think that's more of the strategy than like an overt, like I'm going to completely like force your hand. But like I would have said, no way it, like, and I think this is kind of the right cap on it. Like I would have said there is a 0% chance or minuscule percent chance that the government's actually shut down before Trump. Now, because he's so powerful and he has his own way of doing things, like I might say 5% chance now.
So you mentioned in the very beginning of the stream today, like kind of some of the reasons why the market's rallying is because of the support of not only our government but other governments. And I kind of asked this government shutdown question to tee up like this topic of, so Lithium Americas was a stock that was up 100% today, and it was on the headline that the administration wants to take a stake in it, like they have MP stock, Intel, and if a shutdown were to occur, does that mess with the narrative of any of these companies that are basically rallying because the government has taken a stake? Or once that story comes out and it's done, is that kind of like the end of it? Or does a shutdown change any of that thesis around these companies, do you think?
Um, I think a shutdown, I think a shutdown will be harmful to any of these companies that have seen a lot of growth. Like, in times of extreme optimism, growth trades at a higher multiple. And I've never seen a bigger growth optimism, multiple than I've seen today. Right. So when people start getting fearful, those are the companies that are going to get, because if you look at it this way, like, I don't know, like Intel is, they're getting support from the government, but it's not like you'd have to forecast the government to just be insolvent or like, shut down on a more permanent basis before that would start really having an impact on something like that. And I just, like if it does get shut down, it will be because someone is trying to negotiate for something, or both sides, or a lot of parties are trying to negotiate for something, and everybody's going to feel too much heat and it's not going to last very long. Right. So I don't think you start to get in, but I would run for the hills on any growth stocks. That's for sure.
So we have one more topic to get into today before we do our switch over. Thank you, everybody that's tuned into the streams. I hope you've enjoyed the topic so far. Hit that like button whether you're watching on X or YouTube. YouTube, we're getting close to that 3,000 subscriber milestone, so give us a subscribe over there if you're watching on X or YouTube. Alrighty, we have one more topic, Costco earnings. Can we give our viewers a little preview? I think it's interesting because we've talked about the Walmart Target dynamic, and Costco seemingly fits right in the middle of those two. It's kind of been range bound sideways for a bit. So how do you feel about Costco heading into their earnings?
Let's do this. Let's do our perplexity thing. I this is what I like about this. I don't have a strong feeling about Costco. Like, I think, like, what I do know is I think they're a little overvalued and they tend to look mediocre in Prospero signals, but let's
Right now in Prospero, they have 76 upside, 35 downside, 58 net options.
yeah, but social is lighting up. I will say that's an interesting upside trend going into earnings and downsides going down. I still wouldn't play it. I'm actually going to send this through Perplexity on the other end because we're going to be waiting and I can start the model portfolio during that time. So I will see you on the other side.
All righty, everybody stick with me. George will be right back. He's going to be tuning in from the Prospero.ai laboratory. I hope everybody enjoyed our topics today. If you're new to the streams, what we're about to do is the model portfolio update. So George will make live adds and drops in our model portfolio, which has performed quite well over the past couple of years. So stick around. You'll want to see how he is moving things today, especially on a day where we're seeing a bit of volatility in the markets. And we will get our Costco earnings preview from Perplexity. Okay, let me look at how the market has moved so far throughout the stream. Thank you for everybody who's participating in the chat. It makes the streams a lot more fun, so appreciate you all. All right, so we have, it looks like the markets have kind of gone, stayed on trending lower today. Not much of a switch up from when we started the stream about 45 minutes ago. The VIX is still red, even though the markets have gone down, so interesting to see that. Let's check the QQQ and SPY net options sentiment in Prospero. All right, we are seeing an 11 reading for QQQ and an 11 for SPY. So, excuse me, QQQ and SPY are at the same level right now, which hasn't happened very much. So, interesting to note. Both are quite bearish too, not quite in single digits, but definitely well off where they've been at recently. So, it's looking like a bit of a weaker day across the markets. All right. We'll just wait for George to get back on in here. And then we will get into making the switches. Let's see how Bitcoin is doing, which we didn't bring up at all today. And I didn't even check in the beginning of the stream. Let's see if Bitcoin is going up or down. With seemingly a little bit of selling and growth, I think we'd expect to see Bitcoin lower here today. But let's give it a, oh, interesting. So Bitcoin is up today. So not what you'd expect, possibly. Bitcoin is up 1.5% today. So maybe a little bit of a rotation in the markets. Bitcoin has not really participated in the melt up like a lot of the growthier areas of the market have, trading below all-time highs by about 10% almost. So maybe a little bit of rotation into Bitcoin at the moment. It is interesting to see Russell getting hit the most here today. Wow, I'm looking at the year-to-date gains now for the SPY. SPY is up 12%, QQQ up 15.8%, Dow 7.7% up, Russell up 8.4%. I wonder if we will see these the QQQ stay the outperformer for the rest of the year, or if the Dow and the Russell will do a little bit of a catch-up. FYI, everyone, also, I'm not sure our stream schedule for next week just yet. We might be on a different schedule. So just stay tuned. If you get our Sunday newsletters, you'll know for sure when we'll be streaming, because we always give a shout out to the streams and that. But we might be on a different schedule. So just keep that in mind if you like making the streams. As always, you can always watch the run back on, it's always available on YouTube, Twitter. We also post it on Spotify. We have the links to all of our socials in the description of the stream. So you can click on those and follow us everywhere if you haven't yet. Be sure to ask George about ASTS. I kept bugging him. He responded, LO, talk me into it. 14. All right, we'll have to get George's response. Speaking of the man, George, Matt wants to know how you're feeling about ASTS.
Well, I don't even see that.
Here you go. He commented on X.
God, he's just the man.
He said he got you a 14% win.
No, I mean, honestly, if I listened to him, it would have been bigger. I got myself a 14% win because I got in when it felt good for me, and he never learns that. He just likes to give me a hard time, and I love Matt, but he's a pain in my ass sometimes. All right, we got to get to it. The perplexity thing is going burr. Let's get into this letter. I got out of Baidu yesterday because of the momentum score. It just shows China stocks. They continue to be. I did get some nice gains on it, so I can't be too upset. But it's just so hard. That's so hard to execute like perfectly on it, like even with the signals. Damn, small caps are. Do they come back tomorrow?
Yeah, it seems like we're seeing a decent amount of selling in a lot of the high-flying stocks right now. I see Oklo is now down 8%.
All right.
Palantir red. Memento in our chat said root and plug red today.
Yeah, I did. I'm thinking about getting out of root. It's good. It's like I like the value. Trading portfolios. Even today, we're still approaching 30%. Our climb towards it.
IHRT down 9% now.
Yeah, we finally got that one. That's not right. We're gonna ride that all the way down. I think it's got some. I don't even know.
I feel like that has the potential to be the next bankrupt Prospero pick. What was the last one our signals did that? It was like
Wolf.
Yeah, Wolf. Yeah.
Come on, we don't have time for this. Oh God! If anybody knows why that happens, I'd love to hear. I think it has something to do with Copilot, and I hate it. No, there's no way. All you can do when this happens is just get out of here. If anybody knows what that is, I'd love to, because now I have my cursor back, but it has something to do with when like a formula gets messed up. I don't know. There are. We are going to be. So 42. doubles here. Maybe one of our metas. Let's see. I'm just going to grab the top utilities. TPL. What is going on with SSYS? All right, TPL. We want top utilities. We don't have time. If anybody's wondering what's going on here, we don't have time to do everything today. No time. Oh, look at how terrible these gains are. NEE. Boy. All right. NEE it is. I feel good about this. Maybe I want one more. Oh, I wanted. Did I get? Do we have an active race? I think I got race in there yesterday. Okay. All right, that's all we have time for because we have to make sure everybody gets angry now. If I don't get these out before close, I don't want to anger everybody. All right. Is Batra a win? I can check that myself. Actually, pretty easy. Batra is a slight win. What's going on here? All right.
SoFlo commented CBRE, the ticker, in our chat.
Okay. Okay, so we are going to do actually, I'm going to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 10 longs. And how many shorts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, okay. This is what I'm going to do. What's going on with G? I'm just going to add the shorts. Okay. It took longer than I wanted it to. Okay. We did it. Any questions before we go? We just seem to have comments. What about CBRE?
Do you know if our stream schedule will be normal next week or changed as of now?
No, I don't.
All right, so everybody look out for that Sunday newsletter.
Yeah, we might not do the Wednesday. We're definitely gonna do the Monday.
All right, so we'll be with them on the Monday, so they'll all
Thanks,
know.
everyone.
Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thank you, George.